there guys, this is Malorian, and this is going to be the next video in my Warmachine 101 series, and this one here is going to be about faction jumping. So I really feel this is the next one. I mean, we already talked about how you kind of learn the rules, how you make a list, some of your early setbacks, and now I want to talk about something that usually happens at this point here. So you've just got into a new army, you're starting to hit those first setbacks, and you start wondering, like, man, that grass is greener on the other side. And you see a lot of people that, let's say, like in the first 3 months of playing a faction, they're already looking at another faction. You know, either it's because, man, I don't have any guns, I wish I had some guns. Wow, you know, Signar has a lot of guns. Or like, man, I wish I had some good infantry. That Crix has some good infantry. Or more often, it's the things that really crush you. So as you play the game, you're like, man, that whatever feat just crushed me. I really wish I played that. And either you might look at that exact faction, or maybe because you want to be different, some other faction that has that same sort of idea. But really what I'm getting to is you start saying like, this faction I just started, you know, maybe you push it aside, maybe even sell it, and then you start a new faction. And this actually happens quite a bit. Now, in a way, it's good because, hey, we get a lot of cheap models out there that we can buy because of these people giving up on their factions. But for yourself and becoming a better player, it's really not the right thing to do. And I think that the best way for me to explain this is my own situation. I got into playing with Legion of Everblight, played a little bit, had some successes, had some setbacks, but for the most part, you know, again, grass was always greener on the other side. So I started dabbling in some other things. I started dabbling in some mercenaries. I started dabbling in some minions. I started dabbling in some circle. You know, I'm just going all over the place here. And what I found is where, you know, whatever I had that itch, it's like, wow, I want to play a Jack army. Okay, I want to be doing a Beast army. Okay, I want to be having a control feat, an offensive caster, whatever I want. I'm just jumping around and playing whatever I want. And it was good times. The bad problem, though, is that I wasn't improving as a player. A lot of times I'd be grabbing out something. It's like, what are the stats again? What are the special rules? What are my spells? You know, I'm basically having to remind myself how I play each time. It's one thing if you're going, say, from, you know, Signar to Menoth. Both are Warmachine, both have a lot of shooty elements and really rely on their troops in there too. So it's kind of the same, but when you're jumping to like 1 second, I'm going to, you know, a Jack-heavy mercenaries or an infantry-heavy mercenaries. Then I'm going to circle and I'm taking all beasts and I'm doing this. You know, it just does not crisscross back and forth. And it really makes it so I have to spend so much time just relearning my army as opposed to becoming an expert at it. And eventually that's where I said, you know what, Signar. I really like my Signar. I felt it had the tools and it was a playstyle I wanted to use, and I dedicated. And I said, that's it, frickin' Signar. Now, I'm not saying you can't cheat now and then and try out other stuff, but I would say 90% you should be sticking to that one faction. You want to get to the point where your card, you almost don't need it, right? If you are needing to always go back to your cards to try and remember what the stats are, try and remember what those rules are, you probably aren't playing that one enough. And of course, it will come up because you could play the same faction, but just bring in a new unit or something that, okay, what are the rules for this unit? That happens. But for the most part, that's actually the exact reason why you need to stay with that faction. One thing I had found for myself is, let's take a look at Kane 2. You know, I go up and I make my Kane 2 list, and I'm loving it, and then all of a sudden I start saying like, well, you know what, I think I'd like it a little bit more if I change this for this, and then I play it a little bit more. You know what if I played it this way, and I make another small change, and I do that. Then I say, well, wait a second, what if I run like double Stormwall? And what you start getting from playing the same faction, or even more so, the same caster over and over and over again, is the whole idea that you start becoming an expert at it. It really doesn't matter, right? You get to the point where if I pull out E. Kane And whatever models, it's like, okay, yeah, I've played a style like this. I know what to do. You don't get to that where you need to be like humming and hawing at the start of your turn, at the start of the game, even to figure out what in the world you're going to do. You just have that expertise. And where this really comes in is where you start playing games and you get hit with that surprise, right? It's one thing to kind of know your army, but it's also kind of knowing how your army will interact with the enemy. And if you are spending all your time trying to figure out how your own works, how are you going to be able to spend that extra time figuring out how your army is going to deal with them? So it's a very good thing to have with you. Plus, not only that, but the more ways that you understand your own faction, the more that you can actually improve. Like for myself, if I would have just started with my first couple of casters, I would have never gotten to Siege. You know, that was like, he doesn't seem like to be my thing. I was really playing with other stuff. And it's only later now when I'm really playing Siege that I realize, wow, this guy does a whole big thing for the faction that I just did not even realize, right? Now I'm really understanding this other parts to the faction. And it's really that faction mastery. Now, one of the things you do have to kind of watch for that is for myself and other players, I've seen that where they play the same caster over and over and over again, and they get really good at them. For myself, with Kane 2, played the hell out of him. For one of my friends, you know, his thing is Veil 2. He played that Veil 2 all the time, and he got really, really good with Veil 2. Now, where the problem can come in there is twofold. One, if you are just playing the same caster over and over and over again, that's not faction mastery, that's caster mastery. And all of a sudden, when you start having to deal with 2 lists and divide and conquer or 3 lists, you know, you don't have that depth to you, right? It's almost like in hockey where, I mean, sure, your first line might be really good, but you want to be good with that second line, that third line, and have that depth to your team. So you only want to have that too. As well, if you're playing that same caster over and over and over and over and over again, man, does it get boring. And not just for you, but for your opponents, right? If every single time I know, like, okay, it's going to be Veil 2 versus Kane 2, let's do this again, you know, it just will not have that spark to keep you playing. So, you know, you don't need to skip the faction, you know, just try something else. Maybe I'm going to try Kane 1 and he'll try Veil 1, right? Whatever it is, you know, do those little twists within the faction. Now, the other part why this is a big advantage to you is it saves you a lot of money. I mean, especially for some of the people I know that it seems like all the time they get into a faction, then they sell the faction because they want to do this, and now they're buying this, and then they're selling it, and they're buying this, is that it's so costly. Because, I mean, you buy all these things for the faction. When you sell it, you're only selling it for, you know, a fraction of whatever you paid. So every time you're doing this, you're just losing, and you're losing. And it, like for me and my Signar, I pretty much need nothing. There's a few pieces I can buy, like I don't have really any artillery yet. Any of the artillery yet. However, really at this point, I can mix and match and I have all I need just because I just got my base Signar and then I just added a little. So instead of trying to get a different experience by buying a whole new faction, I would just buy another caster. I would just buy another unit. Very affordable. And again, the more that I stick with that one faction, how about one more caster? How about one more unit? How about that one more solo? Very, very small investments, but all of a sudden the permutations that I can do within that one faction just grow more and more and more. So there you really have it. Really the moral of the story is stick with your faction. As far as how far you should be going, sticking with one caster or sticking with one faction, for a faction, I would say a year. I mean, listening to more experienced players and other podcasts, that's the main thing I usually hear there is do it for at least 1 year. For a singular caster, that one there seems to have a lot of difference as well. I've had some people say that you should play it at least 3 times, at least 5 times, at least 10 times. There's a real variance there for how long you should play a caster before you try something new. Just because, hey, you know, maybe I'll start playing with Kane 1, but if I play one game and push it to the side, I really haven't learned that much. It's really just been that education stage, right? Where I'm just learning the caster. You really have to play that caster again and again and again to start realizing what those nuances are. But will that take you 5 games, 10 games? It really probably actually depends on the caster, right? Some casters play a lot differently than others, right? When I do my well, I mean, even Kane 2, I thought was easy, right? I just walk around and I shoot. But then all of a sudden you start working at things like, wow, I could actually be doing a magical bullet to kill this. And I can actually be using these upkeeps on these different units and lots of different ways of playing it. So even the ones you think are simple could actually then get a lot more to them. Meanwhile, other ones, I mean, like I said, Darius, I used to play the hell out of Darius, and there's not a lot of nuances there. There's a few little tricks, but that's a guy where, like, after 5 games, okay, I know what's going on here. But either way, there you go. I will be continuing this Warmachine 101 series further. If there's any topics you really want me to cover, please comment down below. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.